Hello, I'm Kin. Skilltrix and I are proud to present you the very first GAC Meta Report, based on the data of over 2.7 million individual battles from the last 5v5 GAC, which was Season 9. We collected this data from swgh.gg, to which we'd like to extend a great thanks for allowing us to bypass their rate limit in order to obtain the data. Before we get to the meta report, I want to share a word on what exactly we collected. For every battle, we have the attacking and defending full team compositions, as well as how many banners were won. What we don't have is the gear level, mods, or zetas, due to them not being provided by the GAC data on swgh.gg. So please keep this in mind, as it did limit the extent of our analysis. Now that said, let's get to work. We'll start by showing the most common defensive leaders, and for them, the team compositions which performed the best. Later, in another video, we'll look at the counters to those teams, both 5v5 and undersized. And finally, we'll analyze the emerging meta defensive teams and their counters. These emerging teams are squads that are underrepresented due to being new or hard to obtain, but are very strong, such as the Galactic Legends, Rey and Kylo, or Jedi Knight Luke. And without further ado, let's take a look at the performance of the most common leader set on defense. For this part, we'll be showing the 10 most common leaders set on defense, as well as up to 4 of the best performing teams for each of them. The performance was measured on both the hold rate and the banners count, as well as how many times the team was used. We discarded teams that weren't used often enough. You might see that some teams only account for 0.1% total of the teams for a given leader, but this still amounts for a huge number because of the total 2.7 million battles we analyzed. The most common leader on defense is General Grievous, who's been set on defense for almost 60% of all the matches we analyzed. He's a very strong defensive leader with over 25% of holds, which means that for every 4 first attempts at killing a Grievous squad, 1 of them failed. Banner-wise, his performance is pretty strong. He takes an average of 6 banners from the opponent on average. And there's a certain disparity you can see amongst the Grievous team setups. Teams that do have Watt perform quite a bit better than those who don't, and teams with BB-8 will take quite a few more banners from your opponent when he is in the team. Geonosian, Brood Alpha, and the rest of the Geos. They're very popular, but only 2 significant variations with Poggle or Droideka. Poggle is vastly more common, but having Droideka in the team does result in less banners for your opponent. And overall, compared to most other defensive teams, their defensive holds are subpar, to be sure. Bossk teams have a very large variety of members, but with very little difference in the relatively low hold rate for most of them. The most notable exception here is Nest, who gives a significant boost. The other most popular characters are Zam, Jango, and Dengar. It's best to have all 3 of them in the team for the maximum amount of chance it holds. In terms of banners, it's no surprise to anyone that Dengar is the MVP here. He is in nearly the top half of all of the most successful banner stealing teams. Kylo Ren Unmasked teams can strip quite a lot of banners, thanks in a large part due to Sith Trooper, or Lobster as people call him. While Hux is also good on the KRU teams, the team performs far better with both Hux and Sith Trooper. The First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter pilot is also quite a surprise in terms of banner removal. Unsurprisingly, the combination of Hux and Sith Trooper take the most banners away from your opponent, and these KRU teams have a lot of variance. The best way to increase your defensive holds is to have Sith Trooper on the team. He's the MVP here. Nute is an extremely flexible leader, and it's challenging to score high banners against any variation of his teams. Watt does help him significantly for both banner reduction and hold rate, since his revive brings back Separatist as well as dark side droids. Quite surprisingly, the typical General Grievous team, but with Nute as a lead instead of General Grievous, is only a couple of percentage points less effective than the General Grievous version. You still average more than 1 in 5 successful holds. Jango and Nest are also powerful additions to this team, though far from required to have good results. Carth is just not good on defense. It's pretty easy to score 59, close to 60 banners against him, and even if you do add characters like Watt and L337, who help with taunting and cleansing the Carth team, it's still bad. It's no question this is the worst team to place on defense. Asajj Ventress and the rest of the Night Sisters along with her on defense have pretty much been figured out. With Talzin, Daka, Zombie, and Spirit, it's almost unanimous in terms of what people use, and it's a pretty good team. Mother Talzin is the other Night Sister leader. There are a larger variety of teams that she works well with. Adding Nest is your most effective option, both for win rate and banner removal, but surprisingly in both regards, having Talia is nearly as effective. Also, interestingly, there are no popular Mother Talzin teams with Night Sister Spirit on the team. So you can see that people normally will set AV, Asajj Ventress lead, if they have a good Night Sister Spirit. Padme is a superb defensive team, both to remove banners and to get holds. Her average banner removal is over 5, and there are 3 teams who hold more than 30% at the time. Both of those are amazing. Having C-3PO on the team makes a great difference, but R2-D2 is nearly as effective, even though used far, far less frequently. Speaking of C-3PO, for holds, he's critical to get the most amount of holds, but only when used in parallel with a character who can provide cleanses such as R2-D2, Ahsoka Tano, etc. An excellent, excellent team. Darth Revan, while not as popular as General Grievous, is certainly the best defensive team. He seems to have been sort of figured out in terms of his team composition. More than half of all the Darth Revan teams use the same, coincidentally, most effective setup. Interestingly, while you can still have a great team with Thrawn or Watt on his team, they're still not as good as the full Sith Empire team. And having Sith Empire Trooper on the team also doesn't do much to help with banner removal or success rate. It's an excellent defensive team. And that concludes the overview of the most common defensive teams. In the next video in this series, we'll look at what counters are used to defeat them and how they perform. Thanks for watching.